Hi, everybody. This is the Ferris team here. Thank you for tuning in. Really looking forward to talking to you all today. My name is Daniel Calabro. I am CEO and founder, and
My name is Teo. I'm the technical co-founder of Ferris.
definitely we're really excited today to tell you a little bit more about what we're building, how we want to kind of sell it to the world, and how we want to market this thing. And we took some time yesterday to talk about it from an engineering perspective, which was very valuable. Got a lot of Thad's insights there, which were awesome. And then today we wanted to just take it from a different perspective and a different angle. Thad, for people that don't know you, because for a lot of people the project is, I guess, my project at first, and now that you've come on and people are going to start to know you more and see you a part of Ferris, what would you like them to know about you?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is as technical as it gets, traditionally a software engineer, and I previously had experience with my consulting firm. We do small business and mid-market operations. So think spreadsheet conversions or workflow automations, things like that. And that experience in particular was very, very interesting because I was able to get into what a business actually does day to day, what are their key contributors do on a day to day, and then try to just make their lives as easy as possible. And so, I figured this Ferris opportunity is an amazing fit because that's kind of what we're doing, but just at a much larger scale for a very particular set of individuals. So this demographic is new to me, but I'm continuously learning and super, super excited to be, in the presence of a civil engineering subject matter expert such as yourself. But yeah, outside of that, I am in love with basketball and play some video games on the side. But yeah, super passionate about Ferris, and unfortunately, but also very fortunately, haven't had too much time to play video games as of late. But yeah, that's a bit about myself.
Kid's a pretty killer piano player as well. Got
I
to see that
am.
firsthand. Very
Yes,
cool.
yes, I am.
Very good stuff for sure. And for us now, as we kind of move through this process, I mean, we launched officially March 6th of this year, and we were working a little bit together at that time when we get the payment rail set up and we're going full blast. And we were able to get Ferris in the hands of a lot of civil structural engineers that were out there, and started to get feedback, and that feedback started to we started to make some decisions on that feedback this summer. We had a whole backlog of work that we needed to get to, and this week we definitely get into a lot of it. But even before this, we had TempGen that came out, and now that we have a lot of these engineering needs getting fulfilled that our customers were talking about, I feel like this fall for us is going to be really big from a sales and a marketing perspective. Like we did Ferris V1, we got a lot of really good feedback. We iterated based off what our client was asking for and what they were telling us, and now, how are we going to go and communicate that to the civil engineering community, saying, "Hey, we have this tool for you. We think that it's going to be invaluable to the way that you're going to be working here in the future." Um, from your perspective on projects that you worked on in the past, um, from like a marketing perspective, what has worked? What doesn't work? What kind of sticks out in your mind there?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that in the very traditional sense, you can kind of break it up into like inbound and outbound marketing. And outbound could be everything from those pesky little emails that you get that are marked as spam automatically. And sometimes you see value in them, sometimes you don't. They could be, paid advertisements, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And from an inbound perspective, that's really just putting your content out there, putting your thoughts out there, and people just resonate with that and they want to stick with the ideas that you are communicating, and they want to follow you, they want to keep engaged. And from what I have seen personally, when you're able to build that community of individuals that can really buy in on not just the problem statement that you have called out, but also your position on what you think the solution should be, that
Mm-hmm.
is, in my opinion, really, really powerful. I call that your POV. So obviously, there's a million solutions for any single problem, but really having a stance on how we should be operating and how we should be solving that problem
Mm-hmm.
is sometimes controversial. Sometimes there are individuals that completely disagree with how we're going about solving these things. Sometimes people love that. And for me, when we're able to just put that out there and communicate that, have that customer education piece and really say like, hey, this is what we're doing at Ferris. I think that it will resonate with you once you learn a little bit more about it. In my opinion, I think that is marketing gold. Now, as for the other side of that with like outbound, honestly, as for right now, I don't see that as a super powerful play,
Hmm.
especially in the age of AI. There are software vendors out there that have gone so far as to be able to literally copy your face and your voice and then generate like videos where you're just trying to trick the other person on the end of that communication line to be like, oh, this is a super personalized video that I made for you, when in reality you're just manipulating them. And I don't think that that's the most effective use of our time.
Hmm.
I think that people don't love being tricked. Like even if it does fool them once, like maybe they take a second look at it and they're like, "Oh, that was really sleazy."
Yeah.
I think for us with Ferris, like we are really excited to just communicate and engage from a human to human level. Potentially counterintuitive since we're very AI centric and we love AI. We have it integrated into our entire application,
Hmm.
but we also cherish that human to human connection. And I think from a marketing standpoint, we also are exhibiting that same behavior.
Yeah, for sure. And to your point, like I feel like AI outbound has led to, I don't want to call it necessarily slop, but there's just so much of it. There's so much just noise and chaos out there. And when you're trying to figure out, okay, what is the best platform or tool I should be using, even as a civil engineer, like our competitors, there's a bunch of them that are out there right now. And as a civil engineer, like what differentiates Ferris from the rest of the people that are out there? And I see people like rushing towards like we should just AI outbounds, play the numbers game, get in front of as many people as possible. But what I see working here at Ferris is actually the opposite. If we can go ahead and like white glove onboarding and we could sit down with our customers and our clients and tell them, hey, this is exactly how you're going to use this software. Oh, we want to calculate the return on investment of this program. Well, okay, let's work with you on that and not just give them a platform and tell them, hey, figure it out, but actually sit down with them while they're using the platform, not just to get their feedback, but to help them use it, help it scale and their organization better. People always talk about scaling just at mass. And I think for Ferris, something that's really important to us is how do we scale within an organization? Because we can find a champion here or a champion there that really likes it and sees the value in it. But how do we get past that champion to a point where the entire organization is seeing the value of what we're building and how we're going about business here at Ferris? So, from a marketing perspective, I agree with you. Inbound is super important. Like just managing the inbound comms is a job in and of itself. So, any way we can kind of automate that to make it easier on ourselves to understand that data flow, I'm all about that. But I just don't think that outbounds like mass blast of all this kind of stuff really works anymore. Like everyone's emails inboxes are completely flooded with all the types of like newsletters and daily like markups and write-ups that you get. Like everyone does this stuff. It's a played out playbook. So how are we going to go into that space and really separate ourselves? I just think it's a harder play. So when we get I guess leads and things like that that are really hot, we just sit down and like we make them a part of like our company almost. We go to them like they work with us within Ferris, and we try to make that as
Yeah.
personable as it can be. Um, you said something before about building a community. Do you view that as like building like a virtual community, like a Discord channel, or like what is your take on like building a community around a product?
Yeah, honestly, it's quite interesting because I feel like, especially in 2025, we're talking a lot about inbound, and one of the biggest things that I think has really, I guess, broke through the surface is the idea of like thought leadership on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
If you take a look at the majority of like, let's say Y Combinator companies, I say Y Combinator because they're just the most popular, but take a look at the founders in any batch, any given batch, let's say post 2023. The majority of them are all on LinkedIn trying to, ramp up their engagement. They're usually doing some split of like, all right, let's do like 20% top of funnel, 40% bottom of, 40% bottom of funnel, and then the rest is going to be like middle of funnel stuff. So you see a lot of founders that are like posting day in the life or posting like, this, that, and the other, just trying to ramp up their engagement. And the idea there is they are trying to build an ecosystem inside of their LinkedIn community.
Mm-hmm.
And if you actually dig a little bit deeper, what's really interesting about that is on LinkedIn, the engagement process, the majority of people that are engaging with that content will be the founders, employees, or other founders that are doing the same thing, and they're all just trying to like prop each other up, but they're not really hitting the end user that they necessarily want. Now, that's not all of them. There are some companies that are doing really, really well targeting the individuals that are going to end up being their end users.
Mm-hmm.
But for the LinkedIn content piece, it's definitely something where you have to be really careful about who you're trying to engage with. So when I think of community, I don't necessarily just mean the people that are liking and commenting on our Ferris posts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking the actual end users, the people that are going to be using it day in, day out, that actually see the aha moment in Ferris from minute one of using it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, where does that live? I think that's honestly kind of an unsolved problem. Some people do Discord communities, some people do Slack,
Mm-hmm.
and you kind of get into like a whole mess of nuances when you start to try to manage a community. I mean, keeping a community with like even just like 50 people and trying to keep them engaged and like excited about Ferris as a tool
Yeah.
while also allowing this community to like be self-sustained, it's tough. And there are companies out there that literally hire a community, they call them like a community spokesperson or like
Yeah.
whatever. That's like a full-time job.
Mm-hmm.
It can be at least. So for us, I think that we're still trying to figure out like what does the community for us look like. But I will say one thing. You mentioned champions, and these are the individuals that are trying to adopt Ferris into their firms. And typically, they're managers, they're individuals that are managing other engineers.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of one step removed from the individual that's really going to be using Ferris on the day to day. Our goal is to have our community of engineers that are actually using it.
Mm-hmm.
Our champions are really, really important. We want to make sure that they're well treated and that we give them as much attention as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, this is a product built by and for engineers that have their boots on the ground. So ideally, our community is a mix of both our champions and our engineers that are going to be using it.
Yeah, I think it's a really great point. And as you've been learning more about the civil engineering space, I think you are starting to see the different types of like organizational structures that are throughout what civil engineering is, at least here in the States. And you have these really large firms where a lot of the decision making gets made by C-suite executives or principals or associates or directors at those firms. And then you have smaller like mom and pop shops, less than 20 engineers that are there. And the younger engineers who might not have as much experience, they have a lot of decision-making ability. So it's an interesting play of when you're going about trying to find champions and people who really want to adopt and love this software. Obviously, whoever wants to, we will work with them. We would love to work with them. But if you wanted to like pick a person or target a person, kind of also depends on the firm they work at and like how much decision-making power they have there. And really getting to those key decision makers is something that we've had some actual good success with right now, which I'm very proud of and very happy to say. When it comes to where does this community live? Because what I hope Ferris becomes is just a community of civil engineers. Like one of the organizations that I'm working with right now, the American Society of Civil Engineers, it's like our main governing organization here in the States, and I'm working on the AI task force with them. And that's our community of civil engineers. So like, are we going to go off on our own and like create our own like Ferris ecosystem somewhere? Like, I don't see the need to do that. Like we have a community. Let's just take the technology that we brought and bring it to the community that already exists and show them, hey, this is how we're providing like real value, making your life way easier as a civil engineer now, as opposed to before you didn't have our technology. I think tapping into existing communities is a big part of what we'll be doing here into the future, not just like making our own.
Yeah.
And I think another thing too is like when I first started this project and you want to go and market this thing, you ask yourself the question like, okay, where are the civil engineers? Like, how do I actually physically like get in touch with them? Like, how do I talk to them? And something that I've noticed, which I didn't expect at first, is engineers, like civil engineers, they love LinkedIn and they love Reddit. And they're really not on X. Like, there's really not a big Facebook community. Like, there are some good YouTube channels, but like where they go to like discourse, debate ideas, and like put their information out there to the public, it's LinkedIn, which is like super public, very professional, typically like very buttoned up, and then like Reddit, which is a wild, faceless, chaotic place. So you kind of find both of those places where people live. And here at Ferris, we've definitely leaned in more just to the LinkedIn side of it yet. Haven't had a good chance to really dig into the Reddit side of it just because there are so many unknowns and like, I don't know, the whole like being anonymous and like not being able to like see who is who and people could just say whatever they want about anything. I don't love that. And
Yeah.
for me, I think it's just more effective to be open and transparent and honest, to put your face on something on LinkedIn.
So let me ask you a quick question. With the two different communities kind of split, do you see
Mhm.
that there is value maybe down the line in tapping into that Reddit market?
I think there is. So like that nameless, faceless community, like it's a double-edged sword. Like
Mhm.
part of that sword is like, yes, you might go there and people are just going to talk badly about your product or
Yep.
about you because they can, and there's no retribution from that. The good part about that kind of environment is you tend to say the truth more. And when there's something that's really bothering you and it might not be popular amongst like your peers and you don't want to be judged for it, in those environments where you really want like honest feedback and honest critique, you find it much better in those places. But it's harder to differentiate the noise from the signal because there's a lot of just
Yeah,
both going on there.
absolutely. So I will say, I'm not going to name drop anyone, but there are companies out there that employ that idea of,
Mm-hmm.
the idea that you're anonymous also means that you're going to get the most impactful and the most like truthful feedback that you can possibly get.
Mm-hmm.
And so there are social listening is what it's called. There are a lot of social listening tools out there that specifically are designed to just listen in on Reddit and like
Mm-hmm.
clue you in on what people are feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the major things for me, I think, is all right, the you have the opportunity to really just get hated on. If they sense even like a whiff of an advertisement or like a self promotion for
Mm-hmm.
Ferris, like they're just gonna bash you into like non-existence essentially,
Yeah.
right? And this kind of goes back to the idea, like you mentioned, of either having a Ferris community or having a community of civil engineers, all of whom ideally know Ferris, like know it
Mm-hmm.
well. And when I think from a marketing perspective, I always like to say when we identify problems or pain points, the idea is to just solve them or to help the
Mm-hmm.
individual solve them. Whether or not that's through Ferris, like in my opinion, I think it's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
I think that our product should be in a good enough state where the majority of the time it won't be through Ferris. But if there is ever like a post on Reddit and they're like, "Oh my god, like how do I do this? This sucks. Like I hate sifting through all these like massive documents."
Yeah.
It's like, oh, like listen, there are ways where you could do that pretty fast. Like Ferris exists, but there are other ways potentially,
Yep.
like whatever, whatever. And being that helping hand, irrespective of whether or not we want them as a customer, I think is key.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that we have this community and like they all know affairs, but like they're not ours. Like that we aren't looking to build a cult. We aren't looking to build
Mm-hmm.
like huge diehard fans of us, but we are looking to help out a community of civil engineers in such a way that they're at least knowledgeable that there exists a better option. And ideally, Ferris is the better option, but we're also knowledgeable enough between just the two of us to be able to help other engineers,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what the problem is. Like like I said, we solve a lot of use cases. Ideally, we're going to end up solving the majority of use cases in civil engineering, but sometimes there are going to be gaps there. But regardless of whether or not we identify problem statements that we solve or not, we still want to be that helping hand.
Yeah, something that I like to say a lot, and I think we're very much aligned in this, is we just want to champion the civil engineer. I think just championing the industry and championing like a profession that is just so important to society, and I think sometimes it's very overlooked and underappreciated. Just championing them and helping them improve their quality of life, improving the product that they produce. And I think it's like regardless of even like creates this solution. Like of course we run a company here and we're creating solutions, and of course we want to create the best solutions and we want to give them to as many civil engineers to make their workflows and make their lives as good as they can. But I see all the time, like my algorithm is like tuned for this on LinkedIn. So every time there's any sort of like AI and AEC startup or someone comes up with a solution, it comes on my feed. And I think at first you can look at those things and be like, oh no, like there's another competitor in my space. Like you can get really like selfish about it. Or what I've been doing is I look at the solution that the people are creating and I'm like, that's really cool. Like actually I maybe wouldn't tackle it the same way. Like maybe there are things about the way that you're solving this problem that I don't agree with. But the fact that you're trying and the fact that you're like trying to build and to grow, I applaud and I comment on people's posts all the time. Like, hey, this is awesome. Like keep working really hard, whatever you're doing for this. Like I really applaud that kind of stuff because I think the technology is what's going to outlive all of us at the end of the day. And it's the most important thing. If there's one thing that I will say here, it's like that technology that we're building, I hope that it outlives me. I hope it outlives you. And I hope that it helps civil engineers that we don't even know or might not even be born yet. So, from like a marketing perspective, of course, we want to come up with the best solutions, but we want to just champion the industry and champion the technology as a whole.
Yeah, absolutely. I will say, I don't, when I first started this, I didn't know too much about the industry. But what I
Mm-hmm.
did know is that this industry has seen way too many like VC-backed companies that they think like, oh my God, these guys are still using like paper and pen.
Yeah.
Let's completely revolutionize this industry and like not taking into account the way that the industry actually operates and like how the
Mm-hmm.
engineers really like to operate on a day-to-day basis. And they're just really just looking for an exit, looking for that huge MRR spike so that they could call it quits and be like, all right, I solved that problem. Like this industry needs no more innovation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like that's not what we're trying to do here. But I do think that it's time for companies to respect the construction industry and the AEC industry, and that's sort of the thing that we're trying to prioritize here.
Today, AEC is a really baffling industry. If you look at all the other industries that are out there since like the year 2000, everyone has seen a productivity increase. This is a McKinsey study that I'm citing right now, and I'll put it in, I guess, the link or wherever this gets posted to, the description of this video. But the only industry that's gotten less productive in the past quarter century is construction. And it's like we just had one of the most revolutionary, like technologically speaking, one of the most revolutionary quarter centuries in the history of humanity. And why is it that the AEC space is getting less productive? I think that's like a giant question. I know you and I, we kind of talk about that all the time. And it's like really like that one thing I think people are just sitting there like scratching their head. And I think people look at like the technology aspect of it a lot. Um, they want to innovate in realms where the industry is just not at. And I think a big like ethos of mine is, hey, let's meet the market where it is. Let's build tools for like where you are right now as a civil engineer. And I think like TempGen is a great example of that. Like people still do hand calculations. If you go to Silicon Valley and you tell people there, hey, like people are still doing mathematics on pen and paper and they're building high rises off of that mathematics, they might look at you like a little bit like weird. But I've worked on really big projects, I've worked on really small projects, and that it all kind of happens the same way. And then how that data that's created gets transferred down like the chain of command of decision making, then you digitize it at some step throughout that. And that's where TempGen comes in and it's really valuable. But some of these processes, they might seem like mundane or outdated just because they're not digitized, or maybe like the data sources that we're getting are unstructured and it makes it very difficult to work with. But I don't think that means you just go ahead and build like a whole new workflow outside of the existing ecosystem and workflow these people are like working in. I think you have to meet the market where it is. And I think we're doing a really good job of that. And we're going to continue to really sit down with our clients, sit down with our customers and say like, hey, what are you doing? How are you doing it? What do your workflows look like? What are the data types? What are the data sources? Where are they going? How are they going? And from there, build like very practical, applicable tools. That's something that I'm really proud of is our tools are very practical and very applicable to like everyday life, everyday workflow as a civil engineer. So from there, we talk about marketing. We talk about like how we're viewing the marketplace right now from like a technological perspective. And we had this conversation, and I want to kind of bring it up now. Is like, okay, from a sales perspective, we're going out to market. We are marketing B to C. Of course, like if an individual civil engineer wants this thing, we'll sell them a license. But also, we're also doing B2B. So we're dealing with enterprises, trying to come up with programs for them to get this software implemented onto their workflows. For you, from the computer science perspective, what is like when you're looking at a company, so you've done this before, you look at a company and you're trying to understand how they work. Like, what are some of the key things that you're looking for? Is it like organizational structure or like data flows, or like what are you looking for in that process?
Yeah, I think the number one thing, I'm going to sidestep your question just a little bit
That's fine.
for a sec, but I think the number one thing when I'm just trying to understand the company is how truthful is an individual really? This kind of goes into like sort of like the mom test, and if you haven't ever heard of the mom test, it's essentially this idea that if you ever ask your mom an opinion on something that you've built, she will never disappoint you. Like she will say exactly what you want to hear, even if it's not truthful. And so to avoid that, you really want to position yourself in such a way that you're getting like honest feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that when you're diving into an organization, you're trying to see how a company really runs, you're typically going to be talking to, let's say, an engineering manager, for instance.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that the majority of time engineering managers want to showcase, especially to a stranger, because oftentimes we're talking to them after like only maybe a week of talking to them through LinkedIn or whatever.
Hmm.
And so oftentimes these engineering managers, they want to shed the best light on the organizational structure. They want to shed the best light on their engineers. And so maybe they'll be a little bit less truthful on how things are actually operated. They don't want to highlight that there's 20 fires going on in the background that all these engineers are really working towards. And so when I look top down, how does all of this play out inside of this organization? I want to evaluate how truthful they're actually being.
Hmm.
Now, how do we uncover that? A lot of that is just going to be trust. And again, this kind of goes back to the human to human thing, where we want to be those individuals that are as far away from a sales like person as possible and
Yeah.
really just be like that consultant of, hey, I know you have a problem and I want to help you work through it.
Hmm.
I don't want to say like I want to help you solve it or I want to solve it for you because we're not wizards, but we do just want to help them solve it. And so when we're thinking through these workflows, these pipelines, all that, the crux of it is really just okay. Let's get really really specific and let's try not to hide anything. And once we can kind of like understand their workflows a little bit more and they have a little bit more trust in us, I think that the truth comes out. And really to them, it may be, oh, that stinks. Like I felt so bad about that call because like I uncovered that we're wasting hours and hours on end on things that we
Hmm.
could easily solve. But for us, in our perspective, we like to see that as like a huge win because that's like you are our prime customer.
Hmm.
And like I really think that we can help you out. We can give you what you need in order to like skyrocket operations or whatever. Or even just take the small one. Like maybe you only have like an hour that you lose on something that you otherwise don't really do, but we can solve that use case really, really well.
Hmm.
Regardless, whether it's a linear growth, exponential growth, whatever, that's something that we're really, really proud to be able to say that we can do is give you the tools necessary to do the job if you are doing the jobs that we are serving for.
Hmm.
So yeah, I would say that that's the majority of how I would like to operate is really just uncover the truth first.
So we're just trying to operate from like a truth-seeking perspective when we go into these organizations, figure out how they're operating currently, how are people doing things, what are the results of those things, and then okay, let's find out in this workflow where things are breaking down, where there are friction points, and then how can we apply our technology that we've built, or can we build something to alleviate these friction points a little bit better and give you back maybe more time, increase your QA/QC processes on certain things, um, just increasing overall bandwidth. And I know it's something that we talk about a lot here. Is as civil engineers, one of the hardest parts of our job is just that bandwidth limitation.
Yeah.
And if we can give back, it might seem small, like even if it's 15 minutes a day, every day though, but it compounds over time. And you just get a little bit of bandwidth every week. And then over time, you're able to tackle more problems, and that leads to less mistakes that you have to go back and look at. I think that's really important for us here. From a sales perspective, also, we talk about civil engineering firms, talk about general contractors that we work with. Another conversation that we've been having internally is, do we go to data management providers, try to go work with them? Maybe they need software solutions as well. Do we go to universities just for like an educational perspective? Because I mean, students are using this stuff all the time. I think another really interesting place is, as civil engineers, we rely on like code issuers, and we we go to them for guidance on like, hey, is my design legal? Do By me presenting you this design and getting it built in reality, does this meet your codes that you've manufactured? And going to them, because that is the source of truth in our industry, and like anything in artificial intelligence, like AI, is the data. It's king. And if we can go to the people that make the truth, that service the truth, that issue the truth, and make sure that on our product that those data sources are vetted and provided, I think that's a huge win for civil engineers, because right now, if any of those engineers are going to work within any sort of commercially available AI system, I don't think any of that data is really vetted. It's whatever's web scraped for the most part. And a lot of these organizations have their data behind paywalls. So we're using AI sources right now to cite information and cite data that's not factually backed. And I think a moat that we could build here is, can we get on board with a lot of these data issuing providers and just say, hey, like, we're just offering the vetted data. We'll profit share with you. We'll do whatever we need to do. But I think that would provide a higher level of products here at Ferris. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that having partners, and I think partners is a key word here, but I think having partners that'll allow us to distribute the solutions to a lot of these problems like at scale, I think that's the most important thing. I mean, having code issuers be bought into this idea at Ferris so much so that they're willing to allow us a distribution for a lot of these, codes that engineers are going to be using on a day to day. Like that's huge. Not only because from a like technical standpoint, we're able to then like distribute that document in a lot of our analyses for when we're using like deep query or whatever, but also because these are very knowledgeable individuals in the industry, and these code issuers, like they are allowing us to use their documents, but they're also allowing us to just be partners with them. And I think that that's like another set of individuals that are highly knowledgeable that we have bought into Ferris. And again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but this kind of goes back to the community thing, where like these are individuals that are like knee deep in the industry, and the fact that they see Ferris and they're willingly giving a lot of their assets and allowing us to distribute it for them with, of course, like the profit sharing or whatever. But the fact that they're so bought in that they want us to be sort of like their second stream of revenue or whatever, like that is incredibly, incredibly important for just the longevity of Ferris and like the direction. Obviously it's currently just the two of us, and you have several years under your belt in regards to just working at large firms, working at smaller firms, and that's great. But cumulatively, there's tens of thousands of years.
Yeah, you can tap into all of that.
Yeah, and so having those partners, work with us and communicate with us, that's like the most important thing for me.
Definitely. I think also like it's a win-win if we were to partner with these organizations, because one, we would love to have their data on our platform because we would offer the highest quality of information to the civil engineers that we're servicing. And at the end of the day, it's the most important thing. If we're going to do compliance checks, if we're going to cite code, let's get it from the source directly, as close to it as we can. And in our current state, we allow the users to upload that information. But if we were to create some sort of marketplace or whatever, and we could offer whatever data they needed and have it right there at their fingertips, I would love that. Where it's a win-win is for the code issuers right now. It's their data is getting like slowly like strip mined away from them, like as PDFs get leaked online or as they get ingested into large language models and that gets taken away from them. It's like they're slowly like losing their grip on like what people are referencing and citing as truth. And I think as you see this younger generation come through from the universities that are using AI all the time, like this problem isn't exacerbated yet because most of the people working professionally are not using AI for these types of problems and issues. But as you get like a few classes to come through the universities and all these kids are using these commercially available tools to start citing code and start building in accordance to code, and you realize like, hey, like these code issuers are just losing their grip on like who's actually listening to them. So I think by them partnering with someone that's trying to offer their code with the leverage of artificial intelligence added on top of it, I think, again, it's just a partnership where we both could win and it'll be beneficial to both parties that are involved. And I really look forward to working with some of these codes and these issuers to provide them a platform where they don't have to worry about the development of this AI. Because if you put yourselves in their shoes, and I try to do this the best that I can, they know it's a thing. There's code issuers out there that have like made their own AI bots and chat agents for their code. So you can go into their website and you can kind of like talk to their code, which is useful, very nice. But the level of information that they have, you could leverage it so much more when you apply it to like specific company standards or specific project standards. And just having like this little in-app chat is so one-dimensional, truly. And to build out something like we're trying to build out at Ferris, like you open up all that possibility and innovation and potential by partnering here. So
yeah, absolutely. One thing that I wanted to ask, so with we've had a lot of communication regarding this specific problem, but oftentimes when you're like doing calculations or whatever, some of the engineers, like during a peer review or whatever, they notice like, hey, you're not using like the latest publication of
Hmm.
like this specific code. So go back and use the latest and check over everything, make sure that everything's like compliant.
Hmm.
And that happens a lot in the industry, in the real world. But when we see university students and they're operating inside of their classrooms, they're probably using AI because they're right next door with all the computer science kids and they're using AI like out the wazoo. But also, the university environment is just a much cleaner state. So, would you say that you've seen a lot of university students resonate with the idea of Ferris? Or would you say, maybe junior engineers, 1, 2 years in the industry, they see Ferris and they understand that a lot better than like industry veterans or individuals that have been in the industry for a while?
That's a great point. And I would say a lot of students that are starting to graduate now that have had like the GPTs of the world at their disposal while they went to school, I call them AI native
Mm.
because they were learning about civil engineering via artificial intelligence, as opposed to myself included. I learned civil engineering first, and then I learned artificial intelligence afterwards. These kids are sort of learning it simultaneously, and just because of that alone, they're much more open to what we're offering here at Ferris. And they see the value in what we're offering here at Ferris because they've used a lot of these commercial softwares and they realize, wait, when you go work professional, you have to cite all your sources, you have to make sure that everything's verifiable. Wait, these commercial softwares don't allow me to do that, but Ferris does.
Yeah.
So that definitely resonates there. And it's something that is coming more to light as I go around and I speak. Like I spoke at the American Society of Civil Engineers, the Southwest Florida chapter at the beginning of this summer. And one of the members in attendance was a professor at a university in Florida, a civil structural engineering professor. And came to me after the talk and we were chatting and he's like, all of my students are using AI. And as a professor, I don't know if I should be teaching them how to use it or like who is responsible
Mm-hmm.
for teaching them how to use this software and this technology responsibly and ethically. And I think things that we're working on right now at the ASCE task force will address that. But I was talking to some of my professors at RPI and at NJIT, and I think something that I would like to go and do and we're working on right now is just to go and speak at these universities and like not even like tell them like to buy Ferris, just like literally just be careful like what you're using AI for because there are real world implications and we talk about this a lot. Like a lot of these commercial softwares, they come off as confidently inaccurate. And I think to someone who's very young in an industry as like detail oriented as civil engineering, that overwhelming confidence could lead you down the wrong path without you realizing it. And then there are real world implications of that. So I think there's like a giant education hurdle that needs to happen as well that we're trying to fill the gap in here at Ferris.
So tell me a little bit more about you. You've referenced it quite a few times already, but tell me a little bit more about this AI task force from the ASCE. Like, what does that actually look like? What are they aiming to solve, if there is anything that they're trying to solve?
Yeah, so right now there's a task force through the American Society of Civil Engineers, and it's about 40 to 50 engineers are working on this task force. And the biggest items that we're trying to determine are like how do we ethically and safely use this technology first? Let's understand it. Like how does it apply to us ethically and can we do it in a safe way? To how do we get information and education out to civil engineers in a like in a way that resonates with them so in which they are educated on how to use this technology ethically and safely. So define how you use it, communicate how it should be getting used, and then going out into the community and like cultivating an environment where people are innovating on this technology, people are building for civil engineers, like similar to what we're doing here at Ferris. And they really want to incentivize software that's getting built within our industry or tools that are getting built within our industry for industry in a very safe and effective way. Because at the end of the day, they're really there to enforce safety regulations, ethical regulations, and you have this new technology which some people might outsource like decision making to, and you start getting into these very like gray areas of decision making, which I don't think they're that gray, but to someone else they could be gray. And that's the things that this task force is really trying to fight for and to define. I think there are like guardrails that should be put in place. And it's something that we've been doing here at Ferris. If we were to work with an engineer, work with a firm, we always ask the question like, hey, like what is your AI strategy from the enterprise level? And if engineers and firms don't have an AI strategy, well, we should put one in place. We should put guardrails in place saying, hey, we're cool with AI drafting proposals, doing deep research on your documents, maybe doing a template generation, but we're not okay with it running a full structural analysis model at the moment. Like, let's define what this technology is good at, what it's bad at, and what we should be using it for and what we shouldn't be using it for. And I think the ASC task force coming into place will be a big part of saying, hey, this is like the standardized guardrails of like what we're comfortable with generative AI doing right now. And then in the future, as technology gets better and progresses, maybe that will widen the lane on the guardrails. I think it's really just like an understanding issue and like an educational issue. It's like what we have to really overcome right now. So that's a good question. Thanks for letting me explain that for
Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
Is there anything else you want to touch on today? Yeah, we're good.
I think I'm good.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thank you very much. I don't even know if we're going to post this, to be honest. I was kind of just like chatting and rambling a little bit,
It was a good chat though.
but definitely a good chat. Hope you guys learned something. And again, follow us at askferris.io. You can find us both on LinkedIn. And until next time, peace.